Hello, all you Think, Engage, Thrive community members. We're bringing you another great show. Like always, we look for entrepreneurs that have something different and unique, something we can all learn from. And today we have something that's just amazing. It's amazing, and I think you're all going to love it. I titled this one "The Business Buzz Around Bee Cups: The Blending of Business, Art, and Conservation." Because when you do something, we've talked about this before on other shows, when you do something that you're passionate about, your business generally thrives because it becomes a part of you. So Jen Rose, who's the creator of B Cups and the founder, has she's created more than just a product. They're a testament to her passion for nature and her commitment to making a difference. And they're crafted from porcelain, and they're small funnels designed to capture rainwater that provide a life-saving drink for the bees or all pollinators, but bees mostly. And they're handmade. They're handmade. So she's got a team of people, artists who come in and make these. They're not your typical bee feeder. It's really ingenious in that it mimics the shape of a flower, and again, it's made by hand, and a feat of biomimicry, if I said that word right, that attracts the bees and also adds an aesthetic touch to the garden. And she's got installations in botanical gardens, so it's not just for individuals. She's got these installations in huge installations in botanical gardens. So Jen, let me tell you a little bit about Jen, and I'm going to play a short video after this that she sent over that really, I think, gives you an idea of who she is, what she does. She's an ecological artist. She received her MFA in ceramics from the University of North Texas. She's held faculty positions. She's taught at Richland College. She maintains an active exhibition schedule. Her solo exhibitions include venues such as the Dallas Contemporary, the Morian Center for Clay in St. Petersburg, and the Firehouse Arts Center in Longmont, Colorado. She's currently represented by Camiba Gallery in Austin, Texas, and she recently combined her porcelain expertise with her love of nature to create bee cups. We're going to hear a lot more about it, but they're porcelain cups for the garden. They collect water for the pollinators, primarily bees, and she's pioneered this UV reactive glaze that she invented, which makes the cups look more like flowers to the bees. So it's really interesting, and I can't wait to get in and hear the story. If you remember, a few months ago we did Alginair, which was the phytoplankton air purifier system. It was a similar type of thing. They created this blending of art and function. So I'm going to play this video for you, and I think you'll really get an understanding of it.
Hi, I'm Jen, and this is my studio space. I'm an artist based in Dallas, and I work in porcelain and weaving. So I weave different materials together, and I weave the porcelain into it. So all of these, I call them tiny monsters, are movable and mobile and can be rearranged. I've also experimented with some stop motion animation, which I really enjoy. All of my work is inspired by nature. Last year I took a research trip to the Alaskan coast and explored the tide pools during a supermoon. Many of these tiny monsters are created as a direct inspiration from that trip. Being out in nature is really important to me. Some pieces are actually created to live outside. I enjoy installing works in trees and creating works that interact with beneficial insects. One project that really took off is the bee cups. Bee cups collect a little bit of water for thirsty bees and butterflies. So I developed the bee cups to help pollinators get water and keep water in the environment. And I also wanted to make these look a little bit more like flowers to the bees. So I developed a glaze that glows under black light and under a UV light. So the bees can see UV color even though humans can't. This means that these flowers are gonna look more like, these bee cups are gonna look more like flowers to bees and to other pollinators, even when they're dry and don't have water in them. I enjoy doing large installations of bee cups. This oasis at the Houston Botanic Garden had over 3,000 bee cups. I sell the bee cups from my studio in Dallas, and it's become a thriving business. This year, I'm excited to add more fibers into my studio work. I bought a loom, and I'm taking some basketry classes to learn more about different techniques for making monsters. Thank you for taking the time to learn about my art and a little bit more about what I do as an ecological artist. I hope you'll follow me on social media. Thanks.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it? You kind of get sucked in, right? It's great. So I think that sort of explains who Jen is. So let's bring her in and let's talk to her about her experience. And hi, Jen. Thanks for joining us. And it was a great video, really interesting stuff. So
Hi.
maybe
I'm so happy to be on the show. Thanks for having me and letting me talk a little bit about what I do and kind of my journey to get here.
yeah, that's what we're interested in is how do you go from an artist to an entrepreneur, and thinking of these B cups. I'm sure that a lot of people look at them and think, oh, it's not a big deal, but it's actually a business, and you're doing quite well with it.
It's really pretty amazing because we're the dark horse. People don't expect us to be doing as well as we are doing, and but these have really touched a nerve with the public, with people. The timing was good. Bees are a huge concern right now because of some of the diseases that are affecting the bee population, and so
Yeah.
it's just a timely product that came in, and it gives people joy. That's kind of the bottom line.
Yeah, I think it does. I think they look really cool in when you use them in your garden, and it's interesting. It's really interesting to me.
Hmm.
So give us a little bit of background and then bring us on this entrepreneurial journey because you went from really teaching
Yeah.
to or academia, I guess, and doing your art to making your art full time and then getting into business.
Exactly. So after I graduated, I jumped right into adjunct teaching, and then finally a full-time position as with a faculty appointment. So I did that for a while, but I was always had an active exhibition schedule, so I was always making work, and I started really experimenting with things from the ocean. So that caught my attention first. And I have some friends who live in Juneau, Alaska, and I will go
Yeah.
there quite often. And it's always such an inspiring trip. My brother is a fisherman, and so I go out and hang out with him and fish a little bit too. And we watch all of the creepy crawlies in the water. Um, but one thing I started to do with my artwork was to really create those monsters like was in the video. So it's the idea of these things are based on these creepy crawlies from the ocean, and they're a little bit intimidating when you see them in the water, right? You're not sure you want to touch them, but then you get into it and you have that sense of awe, and it's like a true sense of sublime. So it's scary but also amazing at the same time. And that's what I'm trying to convey to the audience, to get people excited about what's out there, these ecosystems that not everyone has access to, right?
Right.
So just take the time to explore. And that really spilled over into where I live now, which is Dallas, Texas. And we don't have the ocean nearby, but we've got prairie, right? We've got grassland, and there are so many pollinators and insects. And I grew up in West Texas with the centipedes and the scorpions and all of those kinds of things. And they can be very intimidating to some people. My daughter was terrified of bugs when she was very small. And so the idea of something that's terrifying but also fascinating was embedded in my work early on. And then it carried over when I started really investigating bees and other pollinators that we as a community cannot live without. Bees populate or they pollinate, sorry, about a third of every food that we eat and most of the fibers that we wear. So it's not just because they're cute, right? Like they're really important to our survival. So we've got to take care of them. And I took classes, or I went to a couple of seminars about beekeeping, and I thought that's a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know that I can be responsible for that, and I don't know if my family would want a beehive right in the backyard. So I started thinking of other ways that I could help them. And I think observation is what I do the most. I just sit outside and I watch things.
Yeah.
And I noticed that I have some sculptures that are in the yard. And I noticed that if the sculptures had water on them, little insects would come and land on them. And I figured out they were drinking the water. They were just getting just a tiny little sip of water. So that's when I really started thinking about making something. And I wasn't thinking about doing a business, right? I was just like making art, really. And I was thinking about making things that were specifically for insects to drink out of. So so that led to a deep dive into like bee anatomy. Like, do bees have toes? Yes, they have toes. They're like little hooks. And then I was like, how long is a honeybee tongue? It's a quarter of an inch long. So, and then I started thinking about like, what do flowers do to attract bees? So I'm asking all of these questions, and it's funny. It's like, artists ask a lot of questions. And I think that the general public, if you're not an artist, maybe, or you don't spend time with them, our job is to solve problems, right? Or identify problems that people don't know exist yet. And so that's one of the things I was doing when I was making my observations. And then the bee cup was born. So that's kind of where the thought process came from all of that.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's it's very interesting. It's not something that I like animals. I like the planet. I like the outdoors. I'm not afraid of bees, wasps maybe, but bees a little bit. And I have a little bit of land and it's woods, and we have some natural beehives out there that I've left alone. A lot of people have taken down. We had a hornet's nest that was in our side yard that I left alone because I didn't want to bother it. And if I don't bother them, they're not going to bother me, I guess. So, but it is interesting how much they do because you see them around. I'm not good at horticulture, but I do plant a lot. I don't know what I'm really doing, but I do it, and I just do it because it looks good. But you see them around, and you see what the work that they're doing, and so they are important to the environment. So it's very cool.
Yeah. It was really, I mean, like it was so impactful for me to be able to make this object. That it just holds a teaspoon of water for bees to drink out of. It fills up if you water your plants, which I do here in the summer, like almost twice a day when it's really hot. They'll fill up with water, and then you can watch the insects come and drink out of them. We've had ladybugs and butterflies and bees. And it's just so satisfying knowing that you're giving back. You're doing more than just, you could plant flowers, and that's really important, but you're also like giving back and you're providing something for them. And I think that there's a real sense of joy with that, in addition to how much it's needed. Beekeepers love these, home gardeners love these, like bee conservators love these as well. So they're really actually helpful. And it's just not more plastic, mass manufactured things going back into the world.
Yeah. Well, they're pretty as well. So they sort of accent your garden.
Yeah.
As you put them in, it almost brings a little bit of life to the garden instead of just all maybe greenery, which happens here after the spring. Everything turns just green, which is pretty, but it's just all green. But I agree with you. I actually I don't know anything about birds, but I put this. My family got me this bird feeder with a camera on it for
Oh,
for my birthday, and I put it up and I feed the birds. I found out what kind of bird food they like, and it has a camera on it, and it just amazes me. I have no idea what the kinds of birds are other than the color. I That's it, but I enjoy just looking at it. I can sit there and look at it for an hour a day, in
yeah,
the morning while I'm having coffee. I think it's interesting. So, but it all sort of goes together, the birds, the bees, the butterflies, all because we have some bushes outside of our dining room that I planted that for some reason attract a lot of butterflies. And so I can't explain why. I just put them there because they were pretty, but they seem
right.
to do the job. So you,
Yeah, yeah, I actually went through a whole process of taking up, some of the grass in my front yard and
Mhm,
I'm doing it a little bit at a time, so it's not too overwhelming, but making more of a pollinator area.
mhm.
So I am also like people think that I must garden a lot, and I do like the idea of gardening, but I'm not that good at it, if we're going to be honest. And so I just have decided I'm only going to plant flowers because when you plant vegetables, you do battle with the bugs,
Yeah,
right? The bugs are like your enemy.
yeah.
And so if I can do flowers and I bring in the pollinators, then that's doing their job. So I don't have to be mad at any of the squash beetles, right?
Yeah. Well, I made that mistake. I thought that that would be a fun thing one year, and I got a till and I created this area and I planted garden. I
Mhm.
planted all this stuff, and it was beautiful. It was all coming up, and then it attracted. We have rabbits around. We have
Oh
fox.
yeah.
We have all kinds of animals, and it just got decimated between the bugs, between the animals. I would go out there every day and say, "Oh well." So all I did really was create a garden to feed the wildlife.
Yeah, and that's very noble. So that's why I don't do vegetables. I just don't want to have to fight with the wildlife. I like
Yeah,
to embrace the wildlife and I'll leave it to the farmers. I'll buy my produce or my friends. Yeah.
yeah. Well, my dogs keep the wildlife at bay at the house, but just not overnight, they're
Yeah.
not outside all the time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. So now you've got bee cups. How I looked, because I'm very interested in how people scale and how they expand their market and how they attract people. And it looks to me like this is almost all organic. I don't see any advertising. I don't see anything out there, yet you've got this healthy relationship on social media. You've got a strong following on social,
Mhm.
and it appears that that seems to be your mode.
It really is. And it's just as surprising to me that I'm an entrepreneur right now. Like I'm like, surprise, I'm an entrepreneur because I really started this as a passion, as an art project, and it grew up and it grew its own legs and took off. And so my job was to just keep feeding the rocket that was and trying to hold on, right? We had such a positive response on social media that one of my videos got 7 million views.
Yeah,
And it's like I said, people really want to do something. The product is priced well. It's easy to get these and put in your garden. You can interact as much or as little as you want. You can put them out there and forget them and let them fill up with the rain. And then when the bees happen to be there, when the rain's there, they get a drink. Or you can go fill them every day, and it can be a ritual. So I think that just selling them at a good price point and having them so that people can do something positive and make a tiny difference is what people want right now. And so I have a feeling that's why they're so popular. But you're right, we have not done much advertising. I have invested in a publicist just in the past couple of months to kind of do a few things, but on the whole, like it's organic growth, it's word of mouth, and they're infinitely giftable, which I think is very helpful.
yeah. It is interesting that when it's always interesting to me anyway, as a marketer, to watch to watch human behavior, consumer behavior, and see what they're attracted to and why they're attracted to it. And the like I said before, most successful brands that we see out there for startups are the ones that come from somebody's passion, that they're not just creating something for the sake of creating a business. It comes out of something that they love doing. But the other thing is, when a startup business has a founder that is relatable, that somebody can relate to, that somebody can understand, and it's not just a faceless brand,
Mhm.
that to me is much more impactful. And I think that plays a role in it, because then you're making the videos, in your studio. They don't have to be staged. They're not, it's quite obvious that they're not, cameramen walking around and then cutting it and slicing and dicing. You're just making these videos and explaining what you do, and it's very relatable to people. And that, I think, is one of the biggest keys. And as long as you can sustain that and keep growing, which I think you can, I think
Mhm.
it depends on what your goal is with the business as to what you're going to have to do next.
Yes, and that's true. And those are some big questions that, as someone who's coming from an art background, I have surrounded myself with mentors that kind of help me when I have questions about the businesses or the business, and where to go, what the next steps are. Those are some of the things that, with my background, I have the passion, I have the ideas, I have a little bit of kind of innate knowledge about business and human behavior, but I really need those other people to help fill the gaps. And so that's where I've actively seeked out some people that can help me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think to me, I looked at it and said, well, the really next steps is to open up the marketplaces as to where you're going to sell, whether it be
Mhm.
Amazon or Wayfair or some of the other ones that are out there, because the more exposure you get, the better off. I'm happy you got a PR firm. I'm a big believer in, I try and direct, when I mentor entrepreneurs, I try and direct them all to, especially when they have a business that they're passionate about, that they're the face of, because I think that when it comes to advertising and marketing, you'll get the biggest bang out of press than you
Yes.
will out of running ads, because it's more, we could talk about influencers all we want, but that's the best influence, because people are
Mhm.
reading it and they're reading an article, wherever it is, an e-zine or a news site or whatever, wherever that's coming from. So I'm glad that you're taking that approach. It's a pretty smart approach, because I think it'll be an efficient use of spend. Plus, they've got multiple things to talk about with you, right? They can go the
Yeah.
art route, they can go, the art route, they can go the B cups route, can go a million different ways with it. So it's a good move.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. One of the reasons that I decided to go ahead and jump on the with a publicist or a PR firm is, I had tons of followers and views of the videos, but I really didn't have uh, anything that would legitimize the business on a larger scale. So we were able to get a plug in Southern Living. We were able to get a plug in Better Homes and Gardens and in Real Simple magazine. So those are some of the things that I feel like are important that I wasn't achieving just with social media by itself.
Yeah. No, it's true. And an article or a plug or any kind of piece in there that's not a paid ad
Hmm.
goes a lot further, because I think, to your point about consumer behavior today and why people are relating to the B cups, because they want to do something that makes a difference and they want to be involved, and this is a simple way of doing it. On the We've seen a dramatic shift over the last 10 years in people shying away from paid advertising. And there's so much
Hmm.
they get bombarded. We have a nice video on our site, on the Crunch Growth site, about, I think, I don't quote me on this, but I think it's 60,000 ads a day that people are exposed to. And when you think about it, if you're on social media and you start going and you start reading, if you're reading like I do, your news online, or it's just ad after ad after ad. And
Hmm.
you stop believing it because the messages are all the same. And I think people are starting to feel like, what can, who do they trust? Can I trust the message? Whatever. But when they see somebody who's out there and they're relating to them and they're talking about it from their point of view and their business, and then a news site picks it up or a magazine picks it up, it becomes a lot different. So
exactly. Yeah, I just have to remind myself to put my faces on the videos every once in a while.
why?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the probably the best thing you can do is having your face on the videos, because again, it's people know that you're creating the product, right? Even
Yes.
though you have people helping you and you have, people working on all that, it's still you and your vision, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, it's like Glossier, right? I don't know if you know that brand, but Glossier is she started out. I forget her name, the founder, but she started out as a beauty blogger. It was her side gig. She was working in a company, and then at night she would go home and she would blog about beauty products. And for 4 years, she was just a blogger, and she built up this following. People trusted her, what she said, and then she created her first product, or first 4 products, and then it was off to the races from there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
can see that.
they related to her. She already
Yeah.
had them locked in. They trusted her. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what it comes down to. So explain a little bit about how, without giving away any trade secrets, how are you producing this? How are you getting it done every day?
So when we scale, it means just hiring a couple more people to help make the product. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to ask, are you getting echo?
I am not, but are you?
Okay. I am a little.
You can put earbuds in if you want. I can put headphones on. That'll take
let's see here. Just a second.
Let's see. See if that solved it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So how we make these every day. When I wanted to scale the business, it was a matter of just adding more employees. So that's been one of the things. Like, I have great ties with the art school that's just up the road from me, in my alma mater, actually. And so I hire a lot of those students who come in, and they are thrilled to be able to have a job in the art field in ceramics, which is almost unheard of, right? And then I have a couple of full-time people as well. So it's just a matter of having these artists come in, and I train them how to make the product. We all sign non-disclosures, of course, to keep everything in-house. And then it's all handmade. There's no mold making involved. It's all just a one at a time process. And then they're all fired and processed so that they're smooth and they feel great when you touch them. They're nice and smooth. And then we package them up. So I don't know if you need more details than that, but it's been interesting figuring out the process, because they're all handmade. One thing that I love about them is that they're alive, right? That each one has its own personality. Each one is different than the next one. We have different tools where we apply the texture on the inside, so it's not standardized. So every one of them is going to be a little bit different because there's a real human behind it. And I think that makes it organic. That makes it look like flowers in your garden. That makes it look like mushrooms in your garden, and that's what so many people love to see.
Yeah. 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 I just wonder, if you got an order for, 100,000, could you do it?
Well, we had an order for about 35,000 for
Wow.
a Christmas order recently, and we put everyone on it and we did it. So, so it's challenging, but we're up to the challenge. So yeah, as it grows, you have to be strategic for sure. And It's also, I'm learning, the point of diminishing returns. I could hire 10 people and they don't do exactly 10 times what 2 people can do, right? Or
Right.
one person can do. So that's been something that I've been trying to figure out as I go along. Everything's a learning process, but I don't mind because I'm having the time of my life doing this, right? It's so much fun to try and figure out these problems.
Yeah. I would imagine it's uncharted territory. I don't think that I could tell you that I know of a business that's doing this in the United States anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you could continue to do it by hand, I think that's certainly a point of differentiation. It certainly makes them unique, something that can't be copied. I'm assuming that you have a patent on it, uh,
Mhm.
so that you're protected, because once it takes off really big, then I'm sure you're going to wind up with cheap competitors.
Yes, that's true. And we have the patent in process, and so we're all we've got our as much covered as we're legally able to, and um, things are going really well. But yeah, it is one of my goals is to excuse me, maintain integrity in the building process. So as I build the business, I want to maintain, sustainable pay. I want to maintain environmental standards in the way that I make these. I have a zero plastics policy. So even
Yeah.
when I ship these out, I don't use plastics to package them. We get very, very little breakage when they ship, but we just factor in, every once in a while, the tip is going to break off of one and we're going to need to replace it. But I think that's standard for any business.
Oh yeah, everybody's got breakage. I don't care what you're shipping. You could
Yeah.
be we've I've been involved in a lot of companies shipping. We've shipped skincare, razors, food, clothing, fashion. Everybody's got breakage. Everybody's got theft. Everybody's got
Hmm.
problems. But and customers understand it. If something happens, it's how you respond to customers that matters. It doesn't matter that the event happened. It's really how you respond, and people are understandable about it. There's no we started I did my first e-commerce business back in 1998, and believe me, UPS, FedEx, USPS were not at all capable of really
Yeah.
handling that type of e-commerce business, and there were a tremendous amount of damage.
Hmm.
And it's gotten better over time, but it's shipping is always an issue. But stuff happens. It's how you deal with it.
It-
And then when you move on to some of these marketplaces, if you move on to some of these marketplaces, like the Amazons of the world and the Etsy's of the world and Wayfair, you're going to wind up with even more, right? So
right, right. You talked about breakage, and I just want to talk about one of the ways that we're really trying. I mentioned, ecology and the way that we produce the objects and the B cups. One thing that we've done recently is we've started grinding down at all of our breakage. We have seconds in the studio that we can't use for one reason or another. And so what we've done is broken those down and sanded them so that the edges are not sharp anymore. And we're about to launch a new product called bee pollen or bee cut pollen that then you can put in your gardens instead of rocks or glass, crushed glass in your garden to keep the soil damp. This is a really attractive way to cover the soil, keep that moisture in your soil, and it also has a little bit of that glass on it from
yeah,
the bee cups. So the UV reactive glaze, so it'll still attract pollinators. So it's just one of those things. We haven't launched it yet. It's still a month or two out, but it's one of those things where we're able to really take our waste product and then recycle that into something that's beneficial. So we're
yeah,
really excited about that.
that sounds really, really cool. Really,
Yeah.
really cool. So I'm gonna ask you a question, or I'm gonna give you a sentence, and I want you to finish it for me. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the sentence: if I could go back and do one thing differently in my business, it would be to,
I think it might be to quit my day job a little bit faster, to make the leap a little bit sooner. Yeah,
really?
I think so. I had a slow entry because of COVID. So there was a lot of home time, but there was also I was still teaching online quite a bit. And I think that I had it in me to do the business, but I was too scared to take the leap. And so timing is everything. In retrospect, maybe the timing was perfect. Maybe it didn't need to be any faster. But I really do think that that I held on to my day job a little, at least one semester too long, and I could have gotten a little bit more of a early start.
Yeah. We had a person on a few weeks ago who's created, some very big businesses, and we were talking about it because he also gives back and does some mentoring with entrepreneurs. And when you have somebody who sort of starts a business on the side, they come to an inflection point where they
Mhm.
have to make a decision, and it's always that fear. It
Yeah.
comes down to fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of giving up stability, but
Mhm.
it's fear. And one of the things that, and believe me, I put myself in some very, very awkward entrepreneurial positions with companies, and I can tell you that the one thing I learned is, if you believe in it, you have to go. You have
Yeah.
to put your head into it. You have to go, and you have to see it through. There's a lot. You're always going to hit walls in this
Mhm.
in a startup. You're always going to hit a wall, and you're always going to question whether it was the right move. But if you believe in it, you just have to push through, because perseverance will get you to the end goal, right? And
Yeah.
the one thing is, you're not going to die. You're not
Yeah.
going to die. You always you always have family. There's always stability somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So
I
it's
like that.
common.
Just don't die. You'll be fine.
If the business fails, you're not going to die. It's okay. You're going to learn from it. You'll be able to pick yourself up. Believe me, the first, I've talked about this numerous times. First business I did, I was 27 years old. I thought I knew it all. I was a terrible leader. I was a terrible manager of process, and it failed miserably. The business just failed miserably. 4 years of my life, I could have worked at McDonald's and made more money, and
Ugh.
it was a disaster. But I realized what I was lacking. I wound up going back to graduate school, got involved with I got involved with another startup, and sort of picked myself up. But in the back of my head, as I was going through all that, I remembered all the things I did wrong in that first business. So I never made that mistake again. And I learned, and, kept building. But, and then when it came time to do another startup, I had this fear, and I thought, well, what happens if I make the same mistakes, or if I make different mistakes? And then I said to myself, you know what, what's going to happen if it doesn't work out? I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
I'll still be able to go and get a job. So, okay, everything will be fine. And then we just powered in, and it was quite successful. So,
Yeah. I think that you're absolutely right. If you have the passion, you're going to be fine, because people get excited when they see other people that are living their dream. There's
yeah,
something so magnetic about that. And it attracts more business. It attracts more people. It attracts attention.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because it's what everybody wants. Everybody wants the freedom to create and do. Some people don't have the ideas. Some people do. Some people are afraid to make the leap and leave their structured life. It's
Hmm.
not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's definitely not for everybody. But again, the thing I always come back to is, it's going to be okay if you fail. You're not going to die. Everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
I have a second sentence for you. I'm going to
Okay.
throw it out there. You have to finish it. A surprising thing about entrepreneurship that many people don't realize is,
Well, you work so much harder than you would if you were at a 9 to 5 job. I mean, maybe your audience already knows that, but it's not sipping margaritas on the beach, you know? I am always working. Like I have a family. I make myself available at certain times, but I'm checking my phone. I'm doing the phone calls. I may not be at the studio, but I am always on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. It's a totally different type of work though, because it's, at least I find, because I'm the same. I still have Crunch Growth, which is an agency. We're still
Mhm.
growing. I have people that depend on me to continue to build that business because they get, obviously have to get paid, but it's a different kind of work. I love it personally. I don't mind it. My family understands how I am. Like you, I make time. There are times when I'm off, but I'm always thinking about what we can do better. And I think when you work for somebody else, it's not yours, so you check out when you leave.
Yeah. Exactly. And being an entrepreneur in that sense is so much like being an artist. Artists never stop working either. They're always doing something in their head. They're always having ideas. They're always taking notes. And so it feels very much like being an entrepreneur feels very much like being in the middle of a creative downpour as an artist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do that myself. I tend to. It happened actually this morning because we were talking about doing something in the business, and we have a client that we're trying to fix a problem for, and we're having a heck of a time. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up and I had an idea, and I was laying there going, "Should I get up? Because if I get up, the dogs are gonna get up, and
Yeah.
everybody's gonna get woken up." So I tried to tiptoe out to go to my office to start doing something at 4 o'clock in the
Uh-huh.
morning because I thought I solved the problem, but it's the same type of thing. You're right. It's you have to be creative, just like you. You're an artist. You came from academia. Now you're trying to figure out this business process
Hmm.
world. And I'll tell you something, that another gentleman we had on the show, a guy named Joe Rothley, who, if you're a dog lover, and I don't know if you've ever seen greenies,
Oh yeah.
dog, yeah.
Yeah.
So he invented those back in the 90s, and
Hmm.
he had a government job. He tells a great story. He's been on twice because the guy is just phenomenal. But he said he and his wife started Greenies, and they went 4 years without a salary while they were building it. He said we had no roadmap. It hadn't been
Hmm.
done. We weren't. I was a government worker. My wife was a teacher. And so we didn't have a roadmap. We had to build it ourselves. And it turns out we built it, and our process was a bit better than if we had gone to school or
Yeah.
come up in this or worked for a business. Said our methodology was much better because we understood that people were involved in this, and we had to take care of people and all this. So long story short, he sold it to Mars,
Mm.
and now he started another company called Yummy Combs, which are again, it's focused on dogs' teeth. They're like little honeycombs, and it gets up the plaque off the
Oh, yeah.
dogs. And he also has another thing called Spider, which are tools that are sold in like Lowe's and Home Depot. But the man is 80 years old, and he's still starting businesses. And he doesn't start them because of the money. He doesn't start them because of anything else other than he gets these ideas. He has to see them through, but he gives back so much. He builds houses for
Mm.
poor people. He's a great guy, but the same type of thing. There was no roadmap for him, and he had to build it himself. So sometimes doing what you think is right is a lot more important in business than trying to follow some written down rule of how to start a business or scale a business. So
Well, and to that point, I want to say I have a lot of people in my life who are asking me, "Well, are you still only selling B cups?" Right? Like why haven't you moved on to other products? Don't you have other ideas? And I have one cousin who's done very well in business, and his best advice to me was just keep it simple. Just
yeah,
keep it streamlined, keep focused, and keep it simple. And I think it just gave, like, that piece of advice I kind of knew in my gut anyway, but that gave me permission to just ignore everyone else and say, no, we're just doing B cups because that's what we do. Right. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. We're introducing this other product because it's a waste stream from B cups itself, but it makes
Yep.
perfect sense, you know, and I don't want to go off and make 50 different products and try and keep up with all of that. That's just too much. Too much.
Yeah. No, you've got to keep it simple. You've got to establish the brand. You've got to establish the product, because you've got this whole world out there why come up with other products? It's so difficult to market one product, let alone two products or three products. So when you think about the market penetration, you haven't even scratched the surface yet.
No.
And you're still in the United States. I'm sure, I don't know if you're shipping worldwide yet, but you're still in the United States. So there's a whole big world out there.
Yes.
So,
Yes, exactly. We do ship a little bit internationally, but not a ton. But it's great realizing that there's a whole other hemisphere. So when our when our spring starts there in fall and vice versa, you know, so it's a whole other market.
yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with your cousin. Keep it simple, because
Uh-huh.
complexity just drags you down.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. And
so
it stresses you out. So I'm
oh,
gonna, yeah.
terribly, terribly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's I always think about it from a marketing perspective, and trying to get traffic, because we have a client he's got a million ideas, and he wants to set up a second website and a third website, and and I keep saying to him, it's so difficult and so expensive to get traffic to one website, let
Yeah.
alone two or three. You don't have that kind of capital. Let's focus on this and let's keep building this.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know,
You have to have that perseverance. You can't be someone who really gets bored easily.
yeah,
In my own work, I have a tendency in my artwork to make the same form over and over and over again, and then exhibit the abundance of the forms, right? So that process is important to me. And so I'm very process oriented. And I think that's one reason why I can get up and still be excited about this, because I'm still in the process. Like, it's still evolving. I don't need to switch my attention. I'm not bored yet and very far from it. I feel like I'm just learning so much right now.
yeah, you're just getting started,
Mhm.
because again, there's a whole big world out there, and if you're going to keep manufacturing them by hand, then you're probably not going to get bored, because I think what happens to companies or startups when they start to automate, because okay, I was making this brownie, and it took off, and now I have to outsource it to the brownie maker, so all
Mhm.
I am now is just the marketing. I think those folks start to get a little bit
Yeah.
bored, you know
Yeah.
but if you're still in it creating, because you're still creating it, you're still
Mhm.
looking at it, maybe you'll come up with other colors or something. But yeah, absolutely, I think it's you're dead on. Don't listen to anybody and just keep going with your gut.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got about 5 more minutes. Um, but so the last piece is, um, this is the what I find with startups, at least in my startup life of doing things. When I look back on certain events in startups, they may have been scary, they may have been uh, uh, you know off the wall or whatever, but I look back on them today and I think they're funny.
Mhm.
Um, so, have you had any funny stories about your entrepreneurial journey? Anything you look back on and go, "Oh my god, I can't believe we did that," but it was a funny.
Well, I feel like I'm still at the very beginning of my journey. And
Yeah.
so I'll tell you a story, but it's a little more recent than I would like to admit. So we had I was talking with my email uh manager who sends out our emails and does all that for us, and we were talking about setting up a wait list so that people could get on a list to be notified about a product. And I'm looking at the back end of my computer, and I do just about everything. I do the computer, the website, the social media, as most entrepreneurs do. I have
Yeah.
so many roles. So I'm looking through, and I say, oh, well, Squarespace already has this this wait list. Let's click on it and see what we can set up. So I click on it and realize people have been signing up for months to be notified when these products are back in stock. And we're in our slow season right now because it's in between summer and the holiday season. And so we're just really kind of in a squeeze a little bit, as you would be right now. So I thought, wow, I have 2,000 people that want to know when the variety pack is back in stock. So I'm just going to go send these emails. So I sent the emails out and we made like $5,000 that day. It was like finding $5,000 in the couch. I was like, oh my gosh. So stuff like that happened. You just you're in the middle of the stress time, and then you get lucky, or you notice something that you've overlooked. And I think that all of the surprises that you can't really control are hilarious, and they just I don't know, they make it fun, they make it worthwhile. They make me feel kind of foolish sometimes, but that's okay too.
Oh, that's nothing. You can but you're right. It's like finding $5,000 in the sofa. It's great. I could tell you worse stories than that, man. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It is a good one. It is a funny one because that stuff happens more often than you think. There's so many people out there that don't understand what's happening on their site. They don't understand what they have set up, and they just sort of miss it. But yeah.
Yeah.
And I can see that. I could see that on Squarespace. So.
Yeah, it's funny. They just uploaded a bunch of features and this new menu, so you're finding things you didn't know were there. So anyway, it was fun.
Yeah, that's a good one. It is like finding. Well, Jen, we're almost out of time. Again, I really appreciate you coming on. I think it was really interesting. I think what you're doing is really interesting. I love the aesthetic. I'm going to share a lot of this with my daughter, who's an artist, and she's always thinking she loves art. She's at UCLA. She loves art, but she also likes physics. But I think she's looking at it as, I don't know if I could ever make a living at art. And I keep telling her, you can make a living at anything. You just have to come up with something that you're passionate about. Yeah. So I'm going to share this with her because I think this would be an inspiration to her to say, look, here's this artist that's creating art, but also creating functionality, creating something that's useful, and creating a business out of it. So
I consider myself an amateur scientist. Those people are amateur artists.
Yeah, it's great.
And just to throw out there, my father was a professor of business administration. So I get that father-daughter thing, and what you're doing for her is great. She'll really benefit from that.
Yeah, I hope so. So we'll see. But again, I love having you on. I really think it's great, and I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to be with us and tell your story and share it.
Well, this has been so enjoyable. I love chatting with you and your audience, and I just really thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. It's all my pleasure. So
all right.
Thanks again. I got a couple of things to close with, so I'm going to pop you out, and then I got to finish what I have. A couple of things I have to do.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Great. Couldn't have been better, right? I mean, here's something that you don't normally see. We don't see every day. Usually it gets sometimes a little boring trying to find, good entrepreneurs with good stories. And here we have one with such a unique perspective and such a unique flow and a unique product. But I love what she said, where she's got to just not listen to people and just do what her gut tells her to do. And granted, she's got some guidance from her cousin, but it's so true. Sometimes people get in your head and you start thinking about them, and they sidetrack you as an entrepreneur. Competitors can get in your head. My focus is just do what you think is right. And we heard it from, if anybody's been on long term, you've heard it from Joe Rodley a couple of times with what he said. So it's great. And again, one final thing. Scan the code. You can get a complimentary business startup planning guide. It's on my site, philmasiello.com. Just go there. You can scan this. It'll take you there. It's perfectly free. And again, it's just to get you thinking. Those of you who are thinking about starting your business, thinking about what you're trying to do, it's better than any of the products that are out there. Don't get wrapped up in the complexity. This makes things very simple and what you're supposed to focus on in order to sort of build your business plan and build your idea. Because everybody has to have a guide. It doesn't have to be way formal, but it has to be a guide for you to look back on and say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. So again, take advantage of it. It's free. But other than that, we'll see you next week. We've got a great show. I believe next week we're talking about some other AI products that are out there, AI, big conversations about it and how to use them. But I think these are geared more towards marketing and towards generative AI to help do a lot of different things. So we'll see you next week, and have a great time until then.